right, so we're going to pick up where we left off. We left off in verse 19 last week, and we're dealing with the blessings of Jacob blessing his sons. And right now we're in 19, and it says, Gad, a troop, shall trample upon him, but he shall triumph at last. Genesis 49? Yeah. Genesis 49, verse 19. What else do other people have here? This is going to be one of those verses where it gets translated a plethora of ways. Gad, a troop, shall trample upon him, but he shall triumph at last. Does anybody else have anything different?
I have Raider at 19. Raider shall raid Gad, but he shall raid and their heels.
Is that the one?
Wow.
At their heels.
Yeah, see how different that is?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I've got band of Raiders.
Okay. You got a band of Raiders. All right. Well, I'll explain to you why this is a very hard verse to translate, but let me first bring in his birth. He was in Genesis 30, 9 to 11. It says, when Leah saw that she had ceased bearing children, she took her servant Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Then Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a son, and Leah said, good fortune has come to me. So she called his name Gad. And Gad means troops. It means good fortune, invade or overcome. And that's why our translations get translated all kinds of different ways. Raider or attacking. And that's what it means, invade, attack, troop, fortune, those all kinds of different understandings you can pour into that word. Leah gave Zilpah to Jacob, and may have named him after her ability to have a troop of children. This was number, I think, 5, if I'm not mistaken. So here she's got a whole bunch of children. Rachel has none yet, and she's just excited about that, Jacob ties his name to Gadud, which means marauding band, and when he blesses him, if you want to hear it in Hebrew, it's kind of is a play on words, kind of like when we say, how much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck would chuck? That's what's going on here with this verse. So the Hebrew, if you look at it, he uses that word Gad numerous times in the blessing that he's doing, and it's God, Gadud, Igudnu, Vehua, Igad, Akev. So that's how they would say that in Hebrew. And you can see how he's playing on that word Gad and all those different words up there I've highlighted for you. So the translations are hard on this one. But they try to, it's hard to translate that into English because there's words that we don't even have and use. But some people translate this, Gad, troops shall troop on him, but he shall troop on their retreat. And there's another one, Gad, a troop shall troop upon him, but he shall troop upon their heel. And I think, myself, Gad will be attacked by a marauding band or troops, but he will attack the heel. That's what, Akev means, heel. Comes from Yaakov, Jacob.
He's going to go behind them, right?
Huh?
Now he's going to go chase after them?
Yeah. And here's another translation. His name means attack. Okay? Attack will be attacked by attackers, but he will attack their heel. That's my translation. Okay? It sounds a little better to me. But anyway, there's also a play going on in his name, because if you take the word Gad and you reverse it to dog, it actually means fish. So Hebrew's funny like that, Dog means fish in Hebrew, and anyway.
So you ask, where's the fish?
Yeah. And it's funny you say that. What do you think his constellation should be? If you have marauding band, you got God being transferred over and transposed to dog, which is fish. What kind of constellation do you think he would fit into? Yeah, I think Pisces, the fish, with a band. So anyway, the Hebrew word for fish is dagim, which means many, multitude, it's plural. And fish are a sign of multiplication. We found that out when we were in 48, how, Jacob blessed Ephraim and Manasseh, be fruitful as fish, So spawn like fish is a sign of multiplication. And let's see. These two fish that are here are a sign of the believers, Israel and the church. Christ, Aries the ram, is breaking the bands. And you can see that goat right now, the lamb right next to it here. He's breaking the bands with his foot that's connected to Cetus, the sea monster that's keeping them bound so that they can't go. Okay, so he breaks the chains.
What verse are you in?
19.
Genesis 49?
Chapter 39, verse 19.
No, 40.
It's 49. 49.
Yeah, 49.
Okay. And then we have the Decans, which is Andromeda, which is the woman that's chained up. And we got Cephas, the coming king who's going to break the chains. And we've also got the bands are part of that constellation too. And these are broken from Cetus. And his banner that he's going to put in front of his camp are tents. So that's how that's connected with Numbers 2. So let's go to verse 20. Genesis 49, verse 20. And we're going to look at Asher. Bread from Asher shall be rich, and he shall yield royal dainties. Asher Sheminah Lakemo Vehu Yitin Ma Adani Melech. So it translates literally from happy, riches, bread, and he shall give delicacies or delight, king. That's how all those words translate down. So my translation would be, from happy bread you will be rich, and he shall provide king's delicacies. And that's actually what happened to him. He was born in Genesis 30, 12, verse 12 and 13. It says, Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a second son, and Leah said, happy am I, for women have called me happy. So she called his name Asher. So that's happy. Okay. And it also means go straight, like as an arrow flies. And there's not much ties to Asher elsewhere in the Bible, except one place that sticks out in my mind, and it's when Christ came. Does anybody remember that connection? Asher. Okay. There were two people waiting for Jesus at the temple. Simeon
and another lady.
Anna of the tribe of Asher. Right. She's waiting to be happy when she sees the child. Okay. This land that Asher had way up on top there, that green, was a very fertile land. And in 1 Kings 4, 7-15, it says that they got delicacies from this land and provided them to King Solomon.
Isn't that Israel now, today?
It don't go up to Sidon, and I don't think it even goes up to Tyre. I think it's just south of Tyre, which is right here. I think it goes from Dan. Part of it goes to Dan, and you got Mount Hermon right here. But it kind of, I think, don't go to Tyre. I think it goes like right down in here somewhere today. And they're right now fighting up, that's Lebanon up in there. So they're up there trying to fight the Hezbollah and all that. So what constellation do you think would depict Asher, who provides dainty royalties and stuff to the kings?
Scepter.
That's close. Leo is going to be Judah. I mean, there's no way around that one. I'm sorry. Scripture flat out underlines that one, and I'm very, very confident Leo is.
Let's talk about he was a king.
Judah.
Lion represents king.
Well, most people put this as Virgo.
Right.
So let me expound on this one, because this is, I told you I was going to do Judah and Leo. Virgo is represented by a woman holding a branch in her right hand, some ears of corn in her left hand, and she's given a twofold testimony of the coming one. And coming one in Hebrew means bow. Okay? And you'll see that come out here in a minute. The name of this sign in Hebrew is Betula. It means virgin. In Arabic, it means branch. And they're connected. Just like when you go to Latin and you say Virgo, it's a virgin, but Virga means branch. It's a play on that word. And the brightest star in this constellation, that's what it would look like if you just looked up at the sky. And here's how to find it. It's real easy to find. Everybody knows where the Big Dipper is. You come off the Big Dipper and you arc off the handle to Arcturus. That's Boetis. And then you keep going, and the next big one is Spica. And
What
Spica,
verse are you in? Where are you coming from?
I'm still in verse 20. I haven't left 20 yet. This is the Asher blessing.
49, 20.
Okay, I'm connecting all of these constellations to the tribes. When Jacob blessed the tribes, he blessed them. But within them, they also had a pattern in the way they camped in Numbers 2. And they also had a layout in the skies, I believe, of each constellation that was given to them. And that's what I'm doing here, is I'm tying in the constellation to that blessing in verse 20 that Jacob gave them. So this is not going to be in the verse, it's going to be in the words that come out of the verse. You understand that?
Or you made it up?
Well, I didn't make it up. I'm getting a lot of my info from people who have written books on this and have studied decades this stuff. So I'm taking what they have done and trying to put it back, give it to you guys so you can see that this is bigger than just a few words. I believe there's a connection here. I believe God put the stars in the sky and named them. And I believe they're connected to the camp of Israel and the tribes.
Isn't the point of Big Dipper, isn't that the North Star?
Well, the North Star comes off the handle and it goes up to
Right.
the Little Dipper handle.
No.
So the Little Dipper handle is the North Star, I think. But anyway, this is easy to find. And right now, if you go out and look, the horizon, it's to the north. The Big Dipper's kind of looking like this right now, but the Big Dipper spins around. So you'll see it at different positions. But anyway, if you look north, you'll go out and see Arcturus. Just come off the handle and you'll see Arcturus. But Spica is below the horizon yet. She's got to come all the way around the earth. You'll see her after morning, or later on in the morning anyway. These names that are given to each one of these constellations expound on the constellation. And for instance, Semek means the branch. It's also known as Spica. So that word known right there is named the branch. And it's the seed. And you could tie these to numerous scriptures in the Bible, like Jeremiah 23:5 says, "Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will raise up for David a righteous branch." Zechariah 3:8, Hear now, O Joshua the high priest, you and your friends who sit before you, for they are men who are assigned. Behold, I will bring my servant the branch. In Zechariah 6:12, behold, the man whose name is the branch, for he shall branch out from this place. And then Isaiah 4:2, in that day the branch of the Lord shall be beautiful and glorious, and the fruit of the land shall be pride for honor and survivors of Israel. So if you look at these stars, there's another star called Yahweh, and it means glorious or beautiful, which is just what I read in some of those connecting verses. The star in the arm is called Al-Muradin, which means he shall come down. Then the matrix up there means the sun or the branch or he who comes, bow, if you will. And then you have decans that are associated with this particular constellation called Coma. She pictured the Virgin holding the desired son. You have a centaur that depicts two natures of Christ, and he's piercing the wolf. And Bootes or Boetez is picturing Messiah. He's the one that has the sickle for the harvest. Okay. Now the brightest star in the horse's foot is Tolimon, and it means herefore or hereafter, marking him as the one which is, which was, and is to come, the Almighty. Okay. And
How does that fit in with our verses?
because it all pictures Jesus. He is the mighty one. He's the one that's coming. He's the desired son. He has two natures, God and man. He's going to be born of the Virgin. That's where Virgo comes in. And all of these stars I'm naming just picture his attributes. Okay. Al-Katurups, which means the branch or treading underfoot. And then you have other ones in Boetez. Okay, that's where Arcturus is. Remember when you come off the Big Dipper, the first big star is Arcturus. He has names in his constellations like Mirak, which means coming forth, Izar, the preserver, guarding. You got Mufrid, which he who separates. You can see all these names up there in that star. You got Nakar, which is in the neck, and it means the pierced. Jesus was pierced. Okay, he's the coming judge. So all of these stars, when you look them up, will actually show you Christ in them, in the understandings. Okay. Revelation 14, 15, and 16 says, I looked and behold a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat like the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and his hand a sharp sickle. So we can see how that's being depicted there. Telling about Christ coming. Okay. So this one, I kind of want to spend a little time on the stars, and I still didn't do it justice, but you know, all of these have these in them. I'm not going to point out a lot of the stars and stuff in them, just Virgo and Leo. But his banner is going to have on it either a tree, because trees are straight, righteous, like Tamar, palm trees. And then you also have like a table with dainties and royalty stuff on it, because that's what he did. He provided royalties for the king. So that's the constellation Virgo, and that was the tribe Asher. Let's go ahead and move to verse 21. 49:21. Naphtali is the deer let loose. He uses beautiful words. Now, what do you think his banner is going to have on it? A deer. But anyway, he actually comes from Bilhah, which is Rachel's servant. And in Genesis 30, verse 7 and 8, it says, Rachel's servant Bilhah conceived again, and she bore a second son, Jacob. To Jacob. Then Rachel said, with mighty wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister and have prevailed. So she called his name Naphtali. And that comes from two words. Naphtal means to twist, and Tale means lamb or ram. So Naphtali. my wrestlings. And he's like a deer let loose to give beautiful words. Okay, that reminds me of someone who just gets saved. That's what they want to do, don't they? They just get saved. They want to run around and tell everybody beautiful words coming out of their mouth. Okay, they're set free from that bondage that they have been holding them all this time. And just like the woman at the well, that's what she did, didn't she? She went back and come see what I found. He knows everything about me.
Right.
And we see this in many people in the scriptures, how they just, once they're healed, they want to run around and tell everybody. And that's what people do when they get saved. Okay, so Naphtali is located right next to Asher. We just looked at them. And this is connected to the New Testament. In Matthew 4:12-16, it says, "Now when Jesus heard that John had been put into prison, he departed to Galilee, and leaving Nazareth, he came to dwell in Capernaum, which is by the sea in the regions of Zebulun and Naphtali, that it might be fulfilled was spoken by the prophet Isaiah, saying, the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali by the way of the sea, behold, the Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles, the people who sat in darkness have seen a great light, and upon those who sat in the region in the shadow of death, light has dawned." So we're seeing that this is connected, and that comes from Isaiah. So you have these connections here of being glorious, increased joy, like at a harvest. So here's another thing to keep in mind here too. Remember when we were talking about Zebulun, and it says Zebulun, it's got a little picture here, little spot. Well, he went from sea to sea, and I made very numerous connections, and this is one of the verses that'll show you that. If that verse is going to make sense, Zebulun at least had to go to the Sea of Galilee. Okay? So this would be associated with Aries, the ram. Naphtali, Tale would have a ram or a lamb in it. And the twistings, the Naphtal, would be kind of like probably when Christ was on the cross. Okay, and twisted. So the Decans would be the sea monster, and if you remember that he's the one chained to the two fish and Pisces and the lamb breaking the chains, being set free. You have Cassiopeia, the enthroned woman, and then you have Perseus, the breaker. Okay, and that would be connected to Micah 2:13. He who opens the branch goes up before them. They break through and pass the gate, going out by it. Their king passes on before them, the Lord at their head. And I believe this is probably even connected to Tamar. Remember Tamar? She had two children. They were twins. One of them was named Perez, and one was named Zerah. Breakthrough and seed. Those both picture Christ. So he's the breaker. The ones that broke through. Okay. And the lamb also points to Christ. And the banners that they're going to have would be a deer. They're going to have a deer on it. He's like a deer let loose. Okay. So let's do Joseph. Joseph is a big one. And we're in verse 22. Genesis 49:22. Joseph is a fruitful bow, I think you say that bow or bow, by a well. His branches run over the wall. The archers have bitterly grieved him, shot at him, and hated him, but his bow remained in strength. And the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the Almighty God of Jacob. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel, by the God of your father who will help you, and by the Almighty who will bless you with blessings from heaven above, blessings of the deep and lies beneath, blessings of the breast of the woman, blessings of your father have excelled, and blessings of my ancestors up to the utmost, bound to the everlasting hills. They shall be on the head of Joseph and on the crown of the head of him who is separate from his brothers. So he is separated from his brothers, and there's a lot in these blessings. You can see that he got the bigger blessing. Everybody else is one verse. You know, a couple of them might have 2 or 3. He's got several verses. His name, Joseph, comes from Asaph, take away, and Yosef, added. And Genesis 30:22-24 is when he was born. It says, and God remembered Rachel, and God listened to her and opened her womb. She conceived and bore a son and said, God has taken away, there's your names, my reproach. And she called his name Joseph, saying, may the Lord add to me another son. So there's your 2 names, Joseph, take away and add. Okay. So God took away Rachel's reproach because she couldn't have children, but now she's having children and she's being blessed. And Joseph's entire life, we just went through all this, through all the scriptures that we've been through in these chapters. His entire life pictures Christ in all the different ways. You know, he was scorned by his brothers. He was sold as a slave. He was pulled out of the pit, sold into Egypt, falsely accused, became the leader of the world, second to Pharaoh. That all that stuff pictures Christ. Okay. And there are many ties in this story, these blessings that go to Joseph. It says Joseph is a fruitful bough by a well. His branches run over the wall. Okay, this is another one of those hard verses to translate. I dissected this and put those up there on the screen. Joseph, Parat, Ben Ale, Ayin, Benot, Zada. Sure. So Joseph, fruitful son, the side, spring, daughters, step over wall. Can you imagine trying to read that and understand that? Okay, so I think it's saying that Joseph is a fruitful son who has fruitful sons. That's where that branches come in. Beside the well, daughters, and he changes it from Ben to Benot, daughters, the stuff over the wall. And I think these branches, if you think about it, when we make our family tree, we have branches on it, don't we? Showing, and that's what's being depicted here. Okay, your family tree will have branches, and Christ's family tree, when we become part of his, we become in that branch or into the tree and have different branches. Okay. You know, this reminds me of Psalms 1 verse 3. It says, the one who is the blessed man, if he's blessed, he's going to be fruitful, and he is like a tree planted by the streams of water that yields its fruit in season, and its leaf doesn't wither, and all that he does, he prospers. And Jesus is the living water, isn't he? Okay.
What are we supposed to get out of that?
Well, I'm giving you connections that is picturing Christ. Can you see Christ in these scriptures?
I don't think I see hardly anything that I understand.
Yeah. And this is different. This is, we do not spend time looking at the constellations, do we, and connecting them to Christ. But they're there. God put those in the stars, and he says night after night they pour forth speech, and we never look at them. We never try to understand them. But they're there, and there is meaning to them because God created them. Everything he does has meaning. Okay? So Joseph has 2 branches that come off of him, and their names are what? Ephraim and Manasseh, his 2 children. Okay, and they picture the Gentile church and the Jewish people that are being adopted into Israel. Okay, just hang on. We're almost done with this, the constellations, and then we'll move on to the next chapter. And then after we get done with this, we'll move on to something else. So just hang on, okay? I know you don't understand, and you're not understanding how these are connected to the constellations in the camp of Israel, but they are. Just hang on. We'll be done with this shortly, okay?
the wall that they're talking about in there, is that talking about, life being spread beyond the, normal, family tree?
What am
Well,
I supposed to get out of this? What I'm trying to see.
well, you're supposed to see Jesus. I keep saying that, and I know you're not seeing it, but that's what you're supposed to see, Jesus in these things. He's the fruitful bough. He's the branch that's coming. Okay? He is the well, the living water. That's why the woman at the well is pictured there. All this stuff is connected to Jesus underneath. Okay? And his branches run over the walls, what you're picturing at, yeah, they're going beyond the limits. You know, they're by a well. Well is what's giving you nourishment, and you're growing just like a vine or a grapevine or whatever, and it's going over the wall. So that's what I believe that's being pictured.
And what is that supposed to give us? What are we supposed to get out of it?
You're supposed to see Christ and all of his children that are being grafted into him growing, and his prosperity is creating branches throughout the earth, throughout the world. It's a spiritual picture, not a physical picture. You're not going to see a physical vine growing somewhere and spreading out through the earth. It's a spiritual understanding, a metaphor. And we are branches that are spreading out. And when we witness to someone else, we get branches spreading out to other people. And when they witness to somebody else, they get branches. It's kind of like a tree. Can you understand that? And Jesus is the branch that we all branch from. Okay. These, let's see, arrows, he's a fruitful bough and branches fall over the wall. Okay. In Psalm 64, 1-5, and I believe this is connected to him with the arrows, okay? It says, hear my voice, O God, in my prayer, preserve my life from fear of the enemy. Hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, from the insurrection of the workers of iniquity, who whet their tongue like a sword and bend their bows to shoot their arrows, even bitter words. So, arrows in the Bible picture bitter words that you're shooting to someone, and they go to the heart, to the soul. Okay, words, that old saying, sticks and stones, you know, may break my bones, but words never hurt me. That is a lie.
Right.
Because sticks and stones, if you break someone's bones, they'll heal.
Right.
Okay, and maybe you'll be friends later, I don't know.
Right.
But words go to the soul, and they hurt.
Yeah.
And they carry on. God's gonna take all our pain away when we get to heaven, but they can be transitioned into the next realm. And that's why words hurt so bad. And they're like arrows. And that reminds me of when Jesus was on the cross. You know, they were mocking him. Like right there, it says, likewise also the chief priest mocking him with the scribes and elders, and he saved others, himself he can't save. If he be the king of Israel, let him come down from the cross and we'll believe him. He trusted in God, let him deliver him now, if he will have him, for he said, I am the Son of God. So here they are mocking him while he's on the cross. Okay. And that's talked about in Matthew 27, verse 40 and 43 right there. So he would be connected to Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is a guy that's got his bow bent. He's actually shooting the head of the scorpion, and that pictures Christ.
Kill the snake.
Yeah, and then scorpion, you know, can picture a snake. Satan in the Bible can be the snake or a scorpion, right? He stings the heel. He shall pierce your heel. You see how that's connected to Genesis 3? He shall pierce your heel, but you shall bruise his head. And that's what he's doing. Sagittarius is shooting the head of the scorpion or the head of the snake. So it pictures Christ. Okay. And that word separate, he shall be separate. This word is Nazir. So it's Nazarite, separated, the separated one. And
do with the Nazarite vow.
the Nazarite vow is the one that's separated, yeah. Yep. He's consecrated, and he is living his life for God, for a promise that he has made, and he's separated himself. Okay. I believe this is probably even connected to Psalms 45, 2-5. It says, gird your sword on your thigh, O mighty one, in your splendor and majesty. In your majesty ride out victoriously for the cause of truth and meekness and rightness. Let your right hand teach your awesome deeds. Your arrows are sharp in your heart of the king's enemies. The people fall under you. So I believe that's being pictured there in that constellation. There are 3 decans that go with it. Lyra the harp, symbolizing praise. It symbolized praise prepared for the conqueror. Ara the altar symbolized God's fire and judgment on his enemies. And then you got Draco the dragon that's cast down. Okay. His banner would have had wheat on it because he is fruitful. So that's Joseph. And here's our last constellation. Right, Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall divide the spoil. Okay. If you remember, when Benjamin was born, Rachel just came into the land and she died while she was giving birth. Genesis 35, 16-18 says, then they journeyed from Bethel. When they were still some distance from Ephrath, Rachel went into labor, and she went into hard labor. And when her labor was at its hardest, the midwife said to her, do not fear, for you have another son. And as her soul was departing, for she was dying, she called his name Ben-Oni, but his father called him Benjamin. Ben-Oni means my sorrow, son of my sorrow.
And he changed that. No, that's not your sorrow. That's blessed.
Son of my right hand, Benjamin. He pictures both, because when Christ came and died, Benjamin pictures Christ when he died, his son of my sorrow on the cross. But yet, was made the son of my right hand. So these both picture him. Okay. So Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. What do you think about that one?
That's God when he comes back. I mean, Jesus Christ when he comes back.
Okay. All right. Yeah, he is going to come back as a ravenous wolf, isn't he? Some connections that I made here are, a wolf, when they go out, they're kind of set on their mission. They're going to get something to eat or whatever, and they're set on it, and they will keep going until they until they succeed at what they're doing. Okay, Benjamin, if you remember, all the tribes came against him, and he withstood them. Okay, he only had 26,000 men in his tribe at that time that were able to fight, but 400,000 people of Israel came against him, and he withstood them all the way down to 600 before they finally said, hey, man, we don't want one tribe to be left, so let's give them our daughters or whatever. And I know that's a whole different story that I'm not going to bring in. But anybody remember anybody that came from Benjamin, the tribe of Benjamin? Saul, the first king. Okay. Mordecai and Esther. Remember those two in the book of Esther? From Benjamin. And then you have somebody else in the New Testament from Benjamin. Anybody remember? Paul, whose name was Saul to begin with. Saul means fox. So you can kind of see a wolf connection, can't you? And he was ravenous against the church, wasn't he? He was going out and getting them and bringing them back to be killed, and held the coats of Stephen when they were killing him. So Saul was ravenous when he began, and then God got a hold of him, and he turned into the beloved of the church now, doesn't he? Named his name Paul, which means small. All right, so he's connected to Capricorn, is what Bollinger and these people are saying. And that's what it would look like if you looked at it in the stars, go out at night. And he's got 3 decans, the arrow, which pictures, God, and Aquila, the eagle, spitting on the falling one. And then you got Delphius is the dolphin, the dead one rising again. That's how they picture that. Okay, Bollinger and these guys that are studying the stars. Now, that completes the blessings of Jacob upon the sons, and you can see how these constellations are connected to them. And I forgot to tell you that his banner would have the wolf on it. Okay, and we see how that is. There's something else that I found here while I was doing this that is, I'm like, wow, okay, this really kind of conveys to me that these are connected. It's in Numbers 24, and Numbers 24, 5-9, that's when Balaam, the guy that had the talking donkey, he was going to curse Israel. Okay, but every time he tried to curse Israel, he couldn't because God had blessed him. And this is his blessing, if you will. He says how, now check this out. I looked at this and I'm saying, the constellations are in here. Okay, all the things that we just went through and studied, they're in these verses here. So see if you guys can't pick them out and I'll show you. How lovely are your tents, O Jacob, or your encampments, O Israel, like palm groves that stretch afar, like gardens beside a river, like aloes that the Lord has planted, like cedar trees beside the water. Water shall flow from his buckets, and his seed shall be in many waters. His king shall be higher than Agag, and his kingdom shall be exalted. God brings him out of Egypt, and is from him like horns of the wild ox. He shall eat up the nations, his adversaries shall break their bones in their pierces, and pierce them through with arrows. He crouched, he lay down like a lion, and like a lioness who will rouse him up. Blessed are those who bless you, and cursed are those who curse you. Okay, I want you to know here that tents is Ohel, and encampments are Mishkan. There are 2 different words being used there. How lovely are your tents. It's like a regular tent. And encampments are called Mishkan, or tabernacles. That's where that word comes from. And what they understood back then was when you looked at the constellations, you were seeing each one was an tent, in a tabernacle, in a chamber. There are different words that they use for those, but tabernacles are what I'm thinking it is. Notice here too that in this first verse, he says, how lovely are your tents, Jacob, and your encampments, Israel, your tabernacles, Israel. Why are there 2 different names being used here? I'm thinking that this is showing you that you're going to go from tents to tabernacles. You're going to go from, something inferior to something that's better. Because our bodies are tabernacles, and that's where Christ dwells now, right? Okay. So, out of this, what are the constellations that you can pick out?
Well, I see the first one is tents. That's the tribe of, can't think of them.
Gad. Yeah.
Gad.
Uh-huh.
And then the going down the palm trees.
Yeah.
It's not sure what constellation that is.
Okay. One of them, I think Asher had trees on his sign. How about buckets?
Buckets. That's fish.
Aquarius, the water. The guy pouring out a bucket of water. Seed.
That's the fruitful tribe.
Seed, the seed of the woman. We're looking for the seed of the woman. Who's the only woman constellation? Virgo. Then you got exalted. That's what Zebulon means. Here I outlined them here. Gad is Pisces. Okay. Then you got buckets that are Reuben, Aquarius. He's the one, the water bearer. You got seed, which is Asher. We just looked at that. Virgo. That's where the seed will come from, virgin. You got exalted, Zebulun, Cancer. You've got the wild ox, which is Taurus from Ephraim. You have the breaker, Naphtali, he pictures Aries. And you have the arrows in Joseph, Sagittarius, that we just looked at. And then you got Lion of the tribe of Judah, Leo. I was amazed by that. And I believe they're all showing you that the camps of Israel are connected to the constellations and the way they camped. Okay? So, that actually is, and this is how they camp, just like that, in a circle. And the main ones are in the positions that they are given in Scripture. Why don't we just go ahead and end right here, and then we'll pick up with where we left off in verse 28 here next week and finish out, and then we'll go into chapter 50 and move on. But the whole thing that I wanted to show you guys here was God's Word is much bigger and deeper than what we're seeing on the surface. It's just not one verse that's a blessing. Okay, his blessing are prophecies about what's going to happen to you in the future, where you're going to camp in Israel, where your allotments are going to be, your constellations, how they camped. It's all tied together. And I know we are separated from understanding this because, we're 2,000 years removed from them. But they understood this stuff. They had those constellations on the floors in their synagogues in Galilee. And they all picture Christ.
It was like the newspaper back there to them.
Yeah, they looked at that every night.
Yeah.
And they saw that every
We
night.
look at stars and say, boy, the night's bright tonight.
Yeah. We see nothing in them, do we?
We don't pay any attention to what they might be saying because we don't know.
But God tells you, ask them.
Right.
Ask the stars. They'll tell you. Why would he say that
Because it's what he's supposed to do.
if he didn't want us to know this stuff? Ask the stars. They'll tell you.
He said that the rocks will speak.
Yeah. Yeah. If they don't praise me, the rocks will. Amen. So that's amazing to me. I'm really blown away about how all these are connected. And but I did take Judah and Virgo and showed you what those stars mean in those, and all of them do that. All of them show you Christ. So would anyone like to close us in prayer?